Ori and the Will of the Wisps is probably one of my favorite games of all time, and I honestly wasn't a big fan of platforming games before this series. Bouncing off of the first game, there were a lot of things that changed in this game, and honestly they changed for the better. Ori and the Will of the Wisps was originally released back in 2020, and this game still feels brand new to me. The first time I played this game was back in 2022. When my daughter was first born, we spent 5 months in the NICU in a hospital, and Ori got me through a lot of those sleepless nights. Probably like I said in my review of The Blind Forest, the Ori series really got me back into gaming and gave me that urge to want to play it again. For a long time I had been focused on working and not doing anything else, but these two games really reminded me what a game with a beautiful story in a world can really do for you. It holds so much emotional power within this game. I am super happy I got to play this game, and I did end up replaying it in anticipation for this review. And honestly, even with it being my second time playing through this game, it felt like I was playing this game all over again. I still struggled in places and still progressed and got better as this playthrough went on. Ori and the Will of the Wisp also holds a special place with me like its predecessor. But anyways, let's talk about Ori and the Will of the Wisp. Ori and the Will of the Wisp starts off a bit different than the last game. You will firstly be introduced to Ori and his newfound family, which includes everyone from the first game with the new addition of Ku, which is actually Kuro's only offspring. After some time in the peaceful forest, it is time for Ku to begin attempting to learn how to fly. However, Ku has a bad wing, so Ori attaches Kuro's feather to Ku and they go for their flight together during a storm. This is when both of them are flown off somewhere far away due to the storm pulling them away from the forest of Nibel to a land known as Niwen, and I'm sorry if I butchered that. Ori and Ku are separated and will have to find each other, but Ori ends up in a forest surrounded by creatures called the Moki, who are astonished to see a guardian spirit. It is told to Ori that the spirit willow of Niwen had lost its light years ago, and no guardian spirits had been seen since. Ori decides to set out to find Ku, but during the journey, Ori ends up taking responsibility of trying to find all of the wisps and return them to the forest. Ori will end up facing off against a similar threat to the first game, since the forest has been plagued by corruption since the spirit willow had disappeared. You'll join Ori and traverse through multiple different locations, meeting different friends and enemies. As you set out on the journey to bring the spirit willow back to the Niwen, it will be up to Ori to gather all the wisps of the Niwen forest and bring them together. By the end of the game, Ori has a serious decision to make after gathering all of the wisp and facing off against the final enemy within the game. The story will still be told on a similar manner to the previous one, where there is still no speaking other than a godlike voice that speaks to the player. Yet this game still remains to hold on to what make you feel real emotions for these characters and help you understand what Ori is really feeling. The game will have you heartbroken at the end, and you'll be feeling super upset and happy all at once. Overall, the main story for this game is a major tearjerker. I mean, it is so well put together, maybe even better than the first game. It is such a good experience to be able to continue to traverse throughout the world trying to find Ku, who is Ori's family, basically like a little sister. Even with this being my second time playing through the story, it still got me, and I enjoyed every moment of it. From the big plot twist to the depressing ending after the boss fight, this game is definitely worth your time for the story alone if you have not experienced it before. Even if you have, maybe consider going back just to experience it all over again. The world for Ori and the Will of the Wisp does not take place in the same place as the first game. The first game takes place in the forest of Nibel, where the second game takes place in the forest of Niwen. Obviously the two of them share a lot of similarities, but there is also a ton of differences, and it is basically a completely brand new world for you to explore and travel throughout. Within the forest of Niwen, there are a total of 14 different areas for you to explore, some of them being sub-areas of others, but the 14 areas include Inkwater Marsh, Howl's Den, Midnight Burrows, Quolox Hollow, Silent Woods, Weeping Ridge, Luma Pools, Windswept Wastes, Windtorn Ruins, Wellspring, Moldwood Depths, Bar's Reach, Willow's End. Each of these areas follow a general theme to them, whether it be a giant swamp or a beautiful pond or lake area. But this game also offers areas like Moldwood Depths, which is essentially a gigantic cave that you have to explore, but you also get snowy regions and some deserts with it. Overall, the art style for this world is absolutely astonishing. The world itself will make you want to keep playing it. This is probably one of my favorite worlds to explore and traverse around. This game does take a bit more of a linear approach to the world, but you can still explore and find some of the secrets that Niwen has to offer. The combat within this game is honestly pretty similar to the first one, but it does have its differences. For example, you will no longer have a basic ranged attack. In Will of the Wisp, you will have a move called Spirit Edge that you will start off with. You will also have some abilities that are similar to the previous games, such as Bash, Double Jump, Kuro's Feather. However, you will have a ton of abilities that are brand new to the series, such as Blaze, Sentry, Spirit Star, and even Burrow. Most of the skills within this game can be found during the main story or exploring off the main path. Some of them are even required to continue the main story. However, some of the skills can also be purchased during the game from an NPC. Spirit Shards are also a new item that was introduced in this game. These are items Ori can equip to provide either a passive or active bonus during combat, or just traversing the world. An example would be the Quickshot Spirit Shard, which allows Ori to shoot the Spirit Arc 25% faster, which is a bow Ori has access to. Another example is the Ultra Bash Spirit Shard, which increases the damage the ability Bash can perform and can send enemies flying further. Another thing is you will be able to upgrade spirit shards, and they will provide an even greater boost to whatever bonus they provide. The traversal with this game is still just as fun, if not even better. You are able to utilize traversal skills inside and outside of combat. You'll have access to things like bash, double jump, dash, swim, launch, and burrow. Some of these are the same as the previous game, but there is also a few new ones. These skills feel fresh and new in this game, even if the idea is similar to the last. Honestly, this game introduced so many new things within the combat and traversal, but it somehow retained what made Ori great, which was allowing you to utilize the traversal moves during combat and sometimes even requiring it. Yet, they still allow you to be able to traverse the map any way you want to. You can still find ways to get around that may not be the proper way, but that's what made this series so much fun, and this game retained that and even expanded on it. Throughout your time in Niwen, there are a total of roughly 27 different enemies, if I counted correctly. One of the big things within this game is that some of the enemies repeat and are seen in multiple areas during the game, but there are so many different enemies you will almost always find new ones during the first time you play. Similar to the last game, some of the enemies are able to aid Ori in traversing the map. Even with the basic enemies within this game can provide some level of difficulty if you have no idea how to deal with them. None of them should be an easy cakewalk. Honestly, I enjoyed the lineup of enemies for this game way more than the first one. I think one of the biggest and best things is how a majority of the enemies within this game are not the same enemies that were in the first one. The variety of enemies adds a nice touch to the game and really allows for you to get through the relatively short story without getting bored of them. One of the big things Will of the Wisp introduced is actual boss fights into the game. There are a total of 6 different boss fights, and each one adds a unique encounter that will force you to use the combat and traversal skills that you have learned within this game to pull off a win. Each one of these boss fights can be extremely difficult. The first 2 you can pull off wins by tanking through the damage, but for the rest of the fights you'll need to pay close attention to the bosses and for what skills they're going to be using and knowing how to counter them. But don't worry, if you were a big fan of the chase scenes within the first game, they didn't get rid of those either. You can still find some of those chase scenes within this game. One of my favorite boss fights in this game is the fight with Quolek, the giant guardian toad of the forest. Honestly, that fight was pretty sad, but that is honestly what makes this game one of the best. I definitely think once you get through the first 2 boss fights, every single fight and chase scene is almost a 10 out of 10 when it comes to the boss and fight itself. As you progress throughout the game, you will be unlocking different abilities from spirit trees, as well as collecting different spirit shards to unlock new abilities for Ori. You will also be collecting spirit light and using this to purchase new abilities or spirit shards from a certain NPC within the game. Another progression aspect is collecting Gorlek ore. You will be able to utilize this ore and use it to upgrade one of the villages that is currently housing most of the creatures of the forest that are hiding from the corruption that has overtaken it. Similar to the previous game, you'll have multiple collectibles to collect throughout the game. You will be able to find different spirit containers which contain a certain amount of spirit light depending on the type of container you find, as well as you'll be able to find energy and life orbs throughout your time playing this game. Collect enough life orbs and you'll gain additional health, collect enough energy orbs and you'll gain additional energy. Really not much change in the aspects of collectibles within this game other than the introduction of Gorlek ore, which as I previously explained, you can use to upgrade the town within the game. I am absolutely in love with the soundtrack for this game. It is phenomenal. Similar to the previous game, the soundtrack for this one matches the vibe of the game in every way. Going into a boss fight, expect an intense soundtrack to amplify the mood of the fight. Running for your life before or after a boss fight, expect the soundtrack to reflect that scared and frightened tone. Hiding from your enemy, expect an ominous tone to put you in that scared for your life mood. I normally don't go over soundtracks when reviewing games, but with this series, it would be rude not to talk about them. The retail price of the game on Steam is $29.99, and I think it is completely worth that price. Not only does this game completely expand on the concepts the first one started, but it also provides fun and engaging gameplay. The beautiful story that will keep you emotionally attached the whole time, but doesn't overstay its welcome. The game also offers so much opportunity for replayability, which is why I definitely think it's worth it. Well, there you have it. That's my review of Ori and the Will of the Wisp. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Comment what you liked about this game or didn't like, or comment any games that you want to see me review. And don't forget to subscribe. It really helps me out. Thanks for watching.